Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Big drama going down last night in the Americas. 100T versus Sentinels is going to be happening again at the playoffs. Can you believe it? It's been the same story now for the last couple of years, but it's going to be a massively important game in terms of who's going to qualify for this year's World Championship. Big results going down last night, but big drama as well because Sentinels Zellsis not at all happy with the way this series against G2 went, revealing that again in map 1 of the series he had audio issues with his headset. Why is this such a consistent trend? Is it seriously affecting Sentinels' chances last night of making it to the World Championship already? How are they going to fare in a couple of days' time? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to talk about in the kind of Pacific and also the Chinese region. This is pretty crazy, by the way. Event status here for Tier 2 Valorant. So, mega venue, and this is what it's going to be looking like for the Tier 2 side of Valorant. So this is why you understand that, Ryder made a big push out there in China to make this game work. And wow, what a venue for it, and what a venue for Ascension, right? This is the last event to determine China Ascension teams, and they can basically make a full house of a venue like this. It just goes to show why Chinese Valorant is going to continue to be a serious force, I'm sure, over the coming years. PaperX, though, demolished Talon yesterday. So we saw the playoffs. PaperX, of course, went down to Gen.G, then they faced Talon in losers, and Talon got completely destroyed here. This was, I think it was 13-3, 13-3, wasn't it? Yeah, even on Ascent, Talon's picked 13-3, and then the Sunset was 13-3. So, we've talked about Primi, we've talked about this player, and unfortunately for Talon, they just got completely, slammed here. So, it is what it is, I suppose. Talon Esports is pretty funny, right? They literally came into the playoffs, they brought Primi in, they knocked Team Secret out, they qualified for champs, and then they just completely disappeared from the rest of the tournament. So, something to be said on that. I think Primi in general, the fact that, he was on the Cypher, on the map 2, that I'm not necessarily sure was the way to go, but, there was obviously some debate on how you get the best out of Primi, whether if he's playing on, let's say even, when he was on the Jet, the full-blood entry role, whether that's really where he's most comfortable, but I'm sure they'll find that over time. Still an exciting player nonetheless. Gen.G, by the way, in the upper final, they take down DRX 2-1, so they are on for a very impressive run this season, Gen.G. Obviously, we know they're going to be at the World Championship anyway, the winners of their own region. It's nice to win your own region, but of course, what you're really looking for here is, what happens come the World Championship. But a 2-1 win, DRX, they win the game 2 on the Sunset, on their own pick on the Sunset, of course, yeah, 13-10, and then the bind was 13-6 in the end. So when it mattered, Gen.G turned it around. But of course, getting into the playoffs in the various regions, this is when we have seen Abyss come into play. Split is now gone, and that's where in the Americas it was quite interesting because, a team like Sentinels, the door was potentially open to choose Split, but, we'll discuss that in the coming minutes here from, maybe the Kaplan side. So still, Gen.G, DRX, PaperX, those are your top 3 teams. Those are the ones that are going to go through with talent to the World Championship, and of course, Gen.G are still going to remain favourites to do exactly that, but a few days' time until the end of the playoffs over there. But let's talk about what happened in the Americas, because big drama here, really. Loud, this is, of course, Pancada with Zellsis after their time on Sentinels earlier this season, but, we've got to talk about Loud, because this was just a wild series, and it just makes me wonder why, how 100 Thieves fans just must be going through it, is kind of what I'm getting at here, right? Because game 1, they turn up and Loud, a team that is not even in contention anymore. I don't know what it is with Brazilian teams. When they're out of contention, they just start playing well again. And for game 1, they didn't. I mean, 13-1 on the Ascent, on Loud's pick. I mean, if you'd have told someone a while ago that 100T would be 13-1ing Loud on their pick on the Ascent, you'd think, are you crazy or something? But no, Cryo goes 25-4 for the W, and elsewhere in the world, I thought it was kind of crazy to note, given the Loud situation, right, that Aspas, a player that's now gone, and if you'd have heard that Aspas was gone from Loud, you might have said, okay, they're going to fall off, but if I'd have told you that Pancada's there, then you'd have probably said, okay, they'll still be solid, and maybe they still are, but they're not solid enough, right? But it's crazy that Aspas, even in World Valorant, as in every single league, Tier 2, Game Changers, whatever, is still the #1 rated player in the world in all categories. So yeah, after game 1, FNS is damn, we're all washed. That's crazy. Loud are washed, NRG are washed, Optic are washed. These guys, it's all over for them. But no, Loud bring it back and they win it 2-1, right? So this was big for 100T. Yes, they were in the playoffs anyway, but in terms of seeding and who they're going to play next, as we'll discuss in a second, this was not exactly where they wanted to be. So after winning the Ascent 13-1, Cryo goes 25-4, Choice has 1 frag. then they just, they just lose. I mean, 13-8 on their own pick on the bind. The Lotus was then 13-10. Fair play to Pancada coming in big with the Omen on the final map of the series. But this is why 100T are just not very trustworthy as a team, because you never really know what you're going to get. With all that happening, by the way, Liv were confirmed to be going to the World Championship, the only team to have actually fully locked it in so far from the Americas, which is very interesting indeed. But let's talk about the situation over in G2 versus Sentinels, right? Because this was a massive deal for these two respective teams. Sentinels, if they won this series, they would have guaranteed themselves a spot through to the World Championship just because of the amount of points they would have in the regular season standings. However, a loss meant the other story, and they go down 2-0. G2, you've got to give them a lot of credit because they did this last year, they're doing it again this year, putting together as the season goes on a really impressive run. And Icy, I mean, we talked about this guy before, but ever since they made that change, Icy coming in, net going, Icy's just been getting better and better basically every series he's played, and that is a scary sign for the competition, because here he is on the Rays, 41-26. I'm not sure the deadlock was necessarily the player. I think on the Lotus it was kind of okay, but on the binds there were some questions as to, I just thought it was interesting using deadlock really here from Sentinel. Certainly both maps, not something you often see, and I'm sure Gen.G played fine, but I don't think it was anything that was massively influential in their results. But intrigued to your thoughts on that in the comment section below. What I really wanted to share though, right, because okay, Sentinels go down, lots of discussion on what's next, but Zellsis talked about in an interview post-series with Pedro Romero on, again, audio problems during game 1 of the series, basically saying that in game 1 he had no audio and was struggling with that again. And this has been a very consistent trend in the Americas, and especially even for Sentinels and Zellsis before, and in such an important series, the idea that they were having problems here with their audio again is massively concerning.
We had a lot of audio issues map 1. I individually basically played map 1 with no audio, and then we got it resolved for map 2. I don't know if that would have changed anything, but obviously, like, I'm a very big vocal piece in our team and very commanding in our team, so playing map 1 with no audio is kind of tough, considering, I'm usually the one calling a lot of our mid rounds, or making a lot of our post plant plays, or whatever the case may be.
Then I gotta ask about just sort of the tech pause that happened in map 1 at the end of map 1. Then I guess that was for you, right? The audio issues and stuff.
Yeah.
So when you said that the audio issues you couldn't hear at all, are you talking about the entire map overall, or did it start from start of that tech pause up until the end?
All the way up until the last tech pause we took, my audio was messed up. It sounded like for example, there was a round Valen was shooting people from U-Haul on A into short, and it sounded like he was heaven for me. And that was just the whole map. We didn't find out until later that the audio jack was broken, basically. Like, how like the audio jack like plugs in like straight up like this, mine was like bent like that. So kind of unlucky. Kind of sucks because obviously you don't really know unless you check everything. So yeah, just kind of unfortunate, to be honest. I had audio, it just sounded like, obviously, like I said, Valen was in U-Haul. I'm hearing him from heaven. It was like there was no like directional audio. Okay. I couldn't hear my left and rights, my fronts and backs. Like I was basically just playing the game blind as best as I could. So obviously that makes it really hard for me to call anything. So yeah.
Even it was back in April, right, when Zellsis made these comments on the referees, when he talked about the fact that, basically the audio was screwed up back in April, and they told him they needed to do walkouts, and they had to fix the audio, and they came back and the audio still wasn't fixed, and again in game 1 here. Now, it's very interesting how this worked out, because game 1 it was obviously competitive, right? Okay, in the end the bind was 13-6, but it seemed like Sentinels had some signs of life, at least in the first half, and then the Lotus, though, okay, they won a few rounds in the second half, but it wasn't quite the performance on their own pick they might have expected. Of course, the option was also here to potentially choose Split as well, a map that they're really good on, and of course, but maybe the thought process from Kaplan was, well, Split's going for the map pool for the playoffs, so probably better off not picking it now, just so that, they're not practicing a map they're not going to play from now to the end of the season, but still could have been important in the circumstances. So in the end, despite the drama, Sentinels don't qualify then and there, and now they have to qualify a more difficult way, and the issue is for Sentinels and for 100T, this is the way the bracket looks. 11 through, they will play the winner of Crew or Cloud9. The loser here is out, they go home, their season is over. But this is another first round elimination game. Sentinels 100 Thieves, the loser of that goes straight out of the playoffs, and that is so mega. I mean, the amount of times I've seen this over the last couple of years, Sen 100T, loser goes out of the tournament, and the loser will very likely not make it to the World Championship, but it is technically still possible if you're Sentinels, given the number of points that they have. But again, Sen 100T, massively important game in the elimination side of the playoffs. I mean, can you believe it? And, you know, absolute fireworks, I'm sure that it's going to be in a couple of days' time here. And Lassina says, you know, we're always going to play Sentinels one way or another. 100T versus Sen elimination, you know, too scripted, right? One might potentially argue. Now, the situation is as follows, because Sentinels still have a good number of championship points, but they don't have enough to guarantee themselves passage to champs as it stands. So if they beat 100T, of course, they qualify for sure, because they'll have enough points and 100T won't be able to beat them. But if they lose to 100T, it's still not over yet, because they can qualify as the 4th seed, even if they're not top 3 in the playoffs, but they will need one of these two things to happen. Either the winner of Cloud9 versus Crew lose against Lev and then goes out. That is definitely possible, right? So, you know, whoever wins Cloud9 versus Crew, Lev need to beat them, and then whoever loses needs to go out of the tournament first. Then 100T will make it, or G2 loses their match against 100T, then loses straight away and loses. But that seems a little bit less likely on the way that G2 are presently playing. So, you know, fascinated to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. How is Saint versus 100T going to go? Because it's only a couple of days away from another blockbuster series that's always tended to go the distance over the last couple of seasons. But hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.